While the Biden administration continues to supply weapons, including 2,000-pound bombs for Israel's ongoing war against the Palestinians in Gaza, they are also trying to publicly distance themselves from some of the disgusting actions taken by the IDF at the direction of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Their latest and perhaps most pathetic attempt to do so came in a Politico piece that was published yesterday. Here's the title: "Forget no labels. Biden's third-party peril is on the left." Now, the piece correctly argues that the Biden campaign is sleepwalking into an electoral disaster if they continue to ignore how young voters feel about the president's unwavering support toward Israel. So rather than actually take action against Israel as it is committing war crimes in Gaza, administration officials are leaking things like this to Politico. And it's my speculation that they're leaking these statements to Politico, but you'll understand why I'm speculating that after I give you the rest of the story. So Jonathan Martin in Politico writes, "Like everyone in the administration and any Democrat with a pulse, Biden's deeply suspicious of Benjamin Netanyahu and privately has called the Israeli prime minister a bad effing guy, according to people who have talked to the president." Now, Biden spokesperson Andrew Bates said, "The president did not say that, nor would he," adding that the two leaders have a decades-long relationship that is respectful in public and in private. And look, let's keep it real. This has been a pattern with the Biden administration. They see how unpopular supporting Israel's war on Gaza happens to be among the Democratic base. And so here and there, you'll see statements that Biden allegedly made against Benjamin Netanyahu get leaked to the press. Oh, Biden is disgusted with what Netanyahu is doing. Oh, Biden said that Netanyahu is engaged in indiscriminate bombing in the Gaza Strip, which is true. But then he proceeds to send Netanyahu the 2,000-pound bombs on two different occasions. Biden actually went around Congress to supply more weapons and more military funding to the Israeli government. So please spare me these statements about how he's disgusted by Netanyahu. In fact, these statements make the situation worse for Biden, if you ask me, because it is the acknowledgement that Netanyahu is carrying out war crimes while simultaneously sending Netanyahu the weapons in which he needs to commit the war crimes. It's insane. How does this make Biden look good? Cenk.
Yeah. So first of all, let's state the obvious. All these leaks of how Biden is privately tough on Netanyahu are 100% horse crap. And let's look at the two possibilities. One is that it's not even true. They're just making it up. And you think that's not possible? Of course it's possible. All Biden has ever done publicly and with our money is kiss Netanyahu's ass. So you're telling me that he's privately tough on Netanyahu? And by the way, look at the coward. In this particular story, he doesn't even say it to Netanyahu's face. He murmurs it under his breath about a foreign leader we're giving $14 billion to. And wow, I didn't know you were this pro-Palestinian. Wow, okay. This is supposed to convince young voters and any decent humane, moral Democratic voter, which is the great majority of the Democratic voters on this issue, that somehow good enough. He challenged Netanyahu in Israel. So I don't believe it at all. But okay, no problem. Let's say you believe it, right? So that scenario is actually worse for Biden because he thinks Netanyahu is terrible and Israel's committing war crimes, but he's going to give them $14 extra billion anyway. So who the hell's in charge? Who's in charge? Mm-hmm. Come on, guys. Look, it's impossible to pretend that Biden is doing this for America's interest. The American voters in every poll are saying, don't do it, don't, right? The numbers are overwhelming. And among Democratic voters, it's even larger. So he's obviously not doing it for political reasons. He's obviously not doing it to democratic reasons, as in the democracy. So what's he doing it for? Mm-hmm. Why is he so pathetically weak if he thinks Netanyahu is such a jerk? Why does he listen to his every command and order? And at the end, of course, the most important point is, what difference do words make? whether you actually said mean words, said it to him or said it behind his back. You're sending him the money. Your action is the only thing that matters. Biden is a joke. He works for Netanyahu, and all these stories are ways to cover his ass and to try to trick you into voting for Biden because they realize he's bleeding out voters in Michigan and all over the country. And I've got more on this, but I know you do too.
We might have millions of people watching this show, but you can be the difference maker because we just need 1% of our audience to be paid members, and then this show can be around forever. So you can make that difference. Click join now.
Okay, so I want to give you a few more excerpts from the piece because Jonathan Martin in the same Politico piece writes, let's go to graphic 5 here. White House officials told me it was purposeful Thursday before Biden made his first trip to Michigan this year that the president used his remarks at the National Prayer Breakfast to decry hate against Arab Americans and offer prayers for those held hostage or under bombardment or displaced, while simultaneously releasing an executive order levying sanctions on Israeli settlers, 4 of them, in the West Bank who have committed acts of violence on Palestinians. It's so hollow, and it's so obvious that it's hollow. Because while the settlers in the West Bank are certainly a problem, just ignoring the war crimes that are being committed in the Gaza Strip is absolutely ridiculous. And in fact, providing material support for those war crimes is absolutely ridiculous. Now, the Biden administration is going to need to do more than issue these leaky potty words to Politico if it wants to win over these young voters. For instance, a recent YouGov poll found that 50% of self-described Biden voters called Israel's attacks on Gaza a genocide. Okay, a much higher percentage of Democratic voters, I've seen different polls, I'll use the more conservative number, but one poll said that 80% of Democratic voters want a ceasefire immediately. These are not good numbers for Joe Biden. And according to Martin's Politico piece, Kamala Harris is most aware of the danger that the Biden administration is in. She has reportedly been pushing the administration privately to show more sympathy for civilians in Gaza. But showing sympathy for civilians in Gaza, I guess that's fine, but that doesn't come close to what voters want, which is that ceasefire. And not a temporary ceasefire, they want a permanent ceasefire. And if that's true, then the administration should be listening to her at the very least. Instead, they're doing this. The White House, in a reflection of their public confidence, hubris, regarding the politics of Biden's positioning on Israel, arranged a call with Senator John Fetterman. Because why not get advice from John Fetterman, who was adequately bullied and coerced by AIPAC to just show insane support for Israel regardless of what it does? If you sit this out, according to John Fetterman, or throw your vote away, you now are effectively empowering Bibi, and you're definitely going to be empowering Trump. He continues to say, I said the same thing in 2016 to voters. I said, hey, you know what? You don't like Clinton? You know what? F around and find out what Trump is going to be about. And hey, guess what? How do you like it? So he's basically saying, oh, you don't really have much of an option. You have to support Biden regardless of what he does because Trump is much worse.
Yeah, there's a second thing that this piece is doing. It's really interesting, which is it's basically directing, because a lot of times remember, everybody in Washington serves the powerful, lobbyists, donors, etc. So Politico serves corporate advertisers, Biden serves corporate donors, and they all agree on messaging. So a lot of times, Jonathan Martin, when he writes in Politico, is just telling the Biden administration what the buzz is, lobbyists, donors, etc. The people who actually have power in Washington want him to do. Okay, so he frames this article as, now remember, and this is at the beginning of the article, he says a lot of people are attacking No Labels, which is a corporate PAC that's thinking of running a third-party campaign against Biden. And his point is, do not attack No Labels. Remember, go back to attacking the left. The dirty, dirty left, okay? They're the real problem for Biden, and leave our beloved corporate PAC alone and go after the left. Now, they're pretty brazen in the article about how to address this issue, right? So now, if you're bleeding out voters because they hate your policy on Israel and Gaza, the logical move would be to switch your policy on Israel and Gaza and make it less barbaric, and actually have consequences for Israel for violating what theoretically Biden wants, certainly what Democratic voters and American voters want, right? It's never mentioned in the piece, never even considered. It's so Washington that it was not among the choices. So what are the three choices? One was one that Anna just shared with you guys, bring out John Fetterman to convince young voters that he sufficiently cares about Palestinian lives. Fetterman is the biggest supporter of Israel in the whole Congress. That's basically spitting in our face. God, they're so clueless, right? Okay, then the second option is get TikTok, young people on TikTok to do propaganda on behalf of Biden. They even already have the script in the story. It's amazing. And now you'll see it going forward. These are all just total propaganda. So they'll have the young people go, well, I was really upset about Biden, but then I looked into Trump and it turns out Trump is worse. I'm voting for Joe Biden. Okay, and it's not an ad. They're having them do those videos as if they're real, right? And then the last part of it is they say attack Jill Stein and Cornel West and Kennedy. I'm not joking. I'm going to read you one last quote here. That means seizing on any chance to complicate the ballot access of third-party candidates and attempting to discredit their motives or at least highlight the less savory aspects of their character. In other words, here's Politico saying Joe Biden and the Democratic Party should assassinate the character of Cornel West, Jill Stein, and Robert Kennedy. And they should discredit their motives. So you'll see all of this propaganda, you'll see it in mainstream media, their motives, their character, and don't let them on the ballot. Now, remember, democracy's on the line, but one of Joe Biden's policies now is to try to make sure no one gets on the ballot against him. So this is the disgusting world of Washington. And then they wonder why the American people are now, disgruntled with what they thought was democracy. Does any of this look like democracy to you? It's open, brazen propaganda on behalf of the rich and the powerful.
Thanks for watching. If you become a member, you get to watch all this ad-free, except for, of course, this ad. Still, hit the join button below.